A Case of Conscience by James Blish, copyright 1958, is the story of 4 scientists on an expedition to an alien planet called Lithia. The purpose of their expedition is to determine whether Lithia will be a suitable location for a human way station. These 4 scientists are all kind of practicing different disciplines. So you've got a physicist, you've got a geologist, you've got a chemist, and then you've got a biologist. But the biologist is also a Jesuit priest. And so the planet Lithia is home to a species of 12-foot tall reptilian aliens that are vaguely shaped like kangaroos, who live a relatively primitive lifestyle in these kind of homes that are built into the ground. Their civilization doesn't really know crime, they have no concept of religion, and they communicate with other Lithians around the planet via this, I think it's called the messaging tree, which is this enormous tree whose roots extend down beneath the surface of the planet, which interacts with some kind of subterranean crystalline structure which can amplify these messages and resonate them around the planet. What Blish does really, really well here is to create this planet and its biology and its ecology in a really fascinating way that's really well written. He imagines a world and a civilization who have evolved and developed technologies without the presence of some key materials that we have on Earth. So, for example, Lithia does not really have this great wealth of iron deposits, and so the Lithians don't know the concept of magnetism, which means that their technology and their culture has developed along a completely different line to our own. And this is the sort of world building that I really look for in these science fiction novels, and I think it's really well done here. Blish had a biology degree, and you can really feel that knowledge coming through in the novel. And so when these 4 scientists come together, they have to vote on whether Lithia will be a suitable location for this way station. And 2 of the scientists are kind of on the fence, but 2 of them have really distinct opposing viewpoints. And the Jesuit priest, the biologist, has a theory which is completely shocking and incites a debate among the 4 scientists. So the first half of A Case of Conscience is set on the planet Lithia, and for the most part it just consists of these 4 scientists debating the nature of the planet, the nature of the Lithians, and what the fate of this world should be in the context of human civilization, with the outcome of this debate and this vote seemingly having enormous sprawling consequences for humankind. So after the first half of the book, the second half is set back on Earth, and I'm not going to tell you really what happens in the second half, but it is a lot less interesting in my opinion. Earth has kind of descended into this more dystopian society, and I found myself missing the descriptions of the biology and this vivid environment that Blish created of Lithia in the first half. That being said, I do think it all builds to a really unique ending and puts forward some ideas that I've never really seen explored in any other science fiction novel. So despite the second half being a little bit weaker in my opinion, I still think that A Case of Conscience by James Blish comes together to be a really great science fiction book. Miracle Visitors by Ian Watson, copyright 1978, is set in Yorkshire in England, and it opens with the story of a teenage boy who is cycling through the park when suddenly he sees this UFO descend, this flying saucer, and out of it steps this kind of tall blonde alien lady who invites him into the ship and ends up mating with him, which is a very common story among UFO abductees. Flash forward a few years, and the boy has repressed these memories, and he is undergoing a trial with a hypnotherapist who is putting this young man into a trance and having him recall these suppressed memories of this UFO encounter. This hypnotherapist comes up with this theory that all of these UFO encounters and sightings, which are becoming really prominent in the era that this book was written, are the result of these altered states of consciousness, or ASCs, which can potentially manifest themselves into physical phenomena and result in real, tangible events. And so Ian Watson will kind of reference kind of famous UFO sightings or stories or rumours throughout history, such as aliens being concerned over humanity's nuclear experiments. He talks about the story of President Eisenhower meeting with these aliens. And I was a little bit worried at points that he was touching on things that are very cliche, but he's approaching them in a completely different way by examining this theory of alternate states of consciousness and the ways that they can manifest. So there is a bit of a metaphysical thing going on here, and there are times where you're not entirely sure what is real and what is a figment of these characters' imaginations. I think that the writing is pretty uneven. There are some passages that I thought were really well done, and then there are others that are really exposition heavy, where Watson will go off on these tangents talking about historical events, weaving in stories about religion and history. And while some of that is interesting, I do feel that while A Case of Conscience tried something really ambitious and threaded the needle, I think Ian Watson has kind of tied himself up in knots with Miracle Visitors. Rogue Moon by Algis Budrys, copyright 1960, tells the story of the US military working in collaboration with this corporation to investigate a strange anomaly discovered on the dark side of the moon. When men enter this anomaly, or this object, or this location, they are killed in mysterious ways. And there are seemingly a set of rules or directions that you have to follow to avoid this fate. So, for example, if you put your left arm above your shoulder, you are killed in this anomalous area. If you walk in a certain direction, if you wear a certain kind of spacesuit. And so this kind of strange anomalous zone was really reminiscent of the zone in Roadside Picnic. And this novel was written more than a decade before that one was, although I'm not sure that the Strugatsky brothers could have got their hands on this book at the time. So we follow the project director of this expedition to the dark side of the moon, who is trying to kind of map out a route through this anomalous area. But because every misstep results in somebody's death, he has tried to find a way to get around that. And the way that he has come up with is this device where a man can enter it, and they are scanned kind of down to the atomic level and beamed to the moon. And so a copy of that man is recreated on the moon while the original stays within this kind of sensory deprivation tank. And because these two minds are completely identical, there is this kind of telepathic communication that goes on. So when the copy, the clone on the moon dies, the original back on Earth can recall those events that took place on the moon. What this results in, though, is this terrifying encounter and death, causing the original man back on Earth to go insane. And so the director sets out trying to find someone who is not necessarily afraid of death and willing to embrace this risk, so as not to lose his mind after each one of these encounters. And so the project director meets up with the head of personnel at this corporation, and they track down this character who is kind of a daredevil called Barker. He has engaged in many kind of exploration missions and extreme sports. He has lost a leg, and he is seemingly not afraid to venture into the unknown and quite quickly agrees to participate in this mission to the moon. And so you get this cycle of events where this man is being beamed to the moon, his clone is entering this maze-like structure of the anomaly, he's getting further and further through the maze but dying each time, and so copy after copy of himself are being killed, and it's having this kind of cumulative effect on his mind throughout the book. We don't actually really see any of those forays into this anomalous zone because we are following the perspective of the project director back on Earth for the majority of the novel. It's only about 150 pages in this edition, but you don't actually get to the moon for about 140 of those pages. But even when you do, you don't really get the answers that you're looking for with regards to this object on the moon or this installation and what its purpose is, who put it there. And so a lot of questions are left unanswered. And I think that is not really the point of the book. This is more of a character study, looking at what it means to be a person, an individual, how people deal with death. And the characters in here are all quite frosty and high-strung. They're not really getting along with each other. There's a lot of tension. And I think all of this is actually really well done, but I think a lot of people would probably be quite frustrated by the lack of exploration of this central idea of this installation on the moon. And at times I did find that to be a little bit frustrating myself, although I do think that the character work is very good. So I'm a little bit mixed on Rogue Moon personally. So that's all of the books that I've read recently. Once again, they are all from Science Fiction, the 100 Best Novels by David Pringle. I am reading all 100 of these as part of a challenge on my channel. I'll be discussing those in upcoming videos, and then at the end of it, I'll be doing a bit of a ranking as well. So thank you very much for watching, liking, and subscribing, and I'll see you on the next one.